Hello and welcome to another episode of the Jason Sellers Politics Podcast. Today I'm going to be interviewing a candidate in Ward 12. I think there's 3 or 4 candidates who have announced. This was the first one to announce, Jerome Evans. I'll be letting Jerome in a second. Just want to say I apologize if the quality's not so good. I can't find my headphones right now. Things have kind of been in shambles. Not shambles is a bad word. Things have been kind of a mess lately. So I'm going to let Jerome in and we will just start this conversation.
Hey, Jason, how's it going?
It's going all right. Kind of
I look very, very short.
running around here trying to set everything up. But yeah, thanks for joining.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. How do you like to do this?
Yeah, I just have, just a few questions lined up and, we can make it kind of like a conversation. So I'm not just reading off a script or anything. Shouldn't take too long.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
How
So,
long is your typical episode?
I think the longest one's been about 40 minutes. Usually we go about 25 to 30.
Okay. And I recall doing podcasting over Zoom before, and I know the audio clips out once people start talking over each other. So I'm going to be careful not to do that. Maybe I'll raise my hand. Is it a video? Do you do video or do you just do audio?
I do video as well.
Okay, well, they're just going to have to get used to seeing me with my hand raised. Let me go down a little bit so I'm a little more centered. Okay. Well, what else do I need to know about your podcast before we get going?
Yeah, well, I was just going to do a brief introduction. Let you do an introduction then. Yeah, my name is Jason Sellers. I'm a 20-year-old college student in Northeast Minneapolis. So Ward 12 is not really my area of expertise, but I like knowing what's going on all around the city and all around the area. So this is the Jason Sellers Politics Podcast. We've had a few different candidates on over the last cycle and then this cycle. And it's all you really need to know is it's local politics focused.
Exciting.
City council. So
Okay, well, I am so down and so ready. Is everything looking and sounding okay on my end?
yep.
Well, hey, Jason, thank you very much for having me here. My name is Jerome Evans, and I'm running for city council in Ward 12, which is, I believe, not your ward, but I appreciate you having me here all the same.
Yeah, so that brings us very well into my first question, which is just telling me a little bit about Ward 12. My area is kind of the Ward 1, Ward 3 area, so I don't get down to Ward 12 very often. So just let the people know what's special about Ward 12 and what keeps Ward 12 moving.
Oh my gosh, Jason, what are you doing hanging out over there? You need to go to Southeast Minneapolis near the Lake Hiawatha area, the Minnehaha Falls area, and come experience some of the best that, in my biased opinion, that Minneapolis has to offer. In Ward 12, we are very hard workers, a lot of working families. Our values are in the right place. And I believe that we are committed to creating a stable future for our families and for our communities. And every day we get up and we do the hard work required to build that future. We're go-getters, but we're also allies in the struggle for social and economic freedom. And I'm running for city council to bring and center those values of justice and safety, economic and social liberation for all people, no matter what you look like or how you navigate the world, and of course, sustainability.
Yeah. Before we get into some of the issues, I just want to know a little bit more about your experience, particularly with the Public Health Advisory Committee, which I interviewed for, and the Nokomis East Neighborhood Association.
What's funny? You really, maybe without even knowing it, have initiated some pretty transformative change into the way that cities are going to, the way the city committees are going to be structured. I know right now there is a working group at the city of Minneapolis as looking into how we can reserve space for younger people to have their voices heard on city committees. So just for everyone who's out there, the Public Health Advisory Committee is, as in the name, a committee that reports to City Council on matters of public health. Now, those can come from Minneapolitans. It could be something that members of the committee identify, like health issues that we identify that we know need to be discussed, or they can come from City Council members. There are representatives from every ward, plus some other important entities on the group. And at the time, I believe when you interviewed Jason, I believe I was co-chair of the committee. I had been co-chair for quite some time, and I just finally stepped back after the civil unrest and after the pandemic in November of 2022, just so I could, well, one, I wanted to avoid the appearance of impropriety by being the chair of a city committee while also running for city council. But I also want to give this race my all. I feel like we've got some really important issues that we need to tackle. And it's not fair to all of Minneapolis to not give my full attention to my appointed duties as a chair of the Public Health Advisory Committee while also running for office. So we do really good work. Some of the work that I'm most proud of is the kind of work that no one ever really notices. We made recommendations to City Council regarding the removal of lead-based paint in our poorest, blackest, and brownest communities. And those recommendations were adopted, and that work is being done. But, there's never going to be a point where some child is like, oh, glad I wasn't poisoned yesterday. You just they just enjoy a better quality of life, and that really lifts my spirit, knowing that as an outsider, as someone who has never been employed by the city of Minneapolis, I am able to make life better for people who are in vulnerable positions. So that's the Public Health Advisory Committee. And I don't want to talk your ear off because you give a politician a microphone and we like to talk. But I will mention also that I did chair the Nokomis East Neighborhood Association, which is a 13,000 member strong neighborhood organization that encompasses both Lake Nokomis and Lake Hiawatha. They're very close together when you look on the map, but Lake Hiawatha is in Ward 12, so that's why I mentioned that one first. But Lake Nokomis is in the Nokomis East Neighborhood Association area. And so come down and experience both. You will not be disappointed. And on the neighborhood association, we really took aim at ways that we could improve quality of life for people living in this geography through a set amount of money that was allocated by some various programs, including the city. And I do regret to say that the city seems to be walking away from the past investments that it's made in our neighborhood associations, which I think is deeply unfortunate, because at least when I was on Nokomis East Neighborhood Association, we were really doing some great work. One example that comes to mind has to do with public safety, where we would administer grants to people for them to install home security systems in their own home so that they could feel safe. And that grant program, unfortunately, is no longer operating because we're no longer seeing the investment from the city that we had been seeing in the past. So that's the Public Health Advisory Committee and Nina. And now I'm going to let Jason talk because I've been going on.
Yeah, I think there was a sentence there about helping people, helping the invulnerable, or helping the vulnerable, and just that statement of helping people is why I am interested in this kind of work, and why I follow politics is because I want to be able to help people, whether that's running myself or helping other people get elected. or working outside of politics. Helping people has always been gratifying and has always been something that I value. So, that just really, really rung true for me when I heard that. Um, and then oh yeah, go ahead.
Yes, yes, yes. I want to say that, it has been a few years since we last spoke. So I
Mhm.
think I glossed over that a little bit when I was describing the transformational change that you sparked in the Public Health Advisory Committee, because I think in our conversations, everybody knew that your voice needed to be somewhere where it could be heard. We were like, oh, we got to platform this. We got to platform this person for sure. And it was, I think, one of the frustrations that I have with city government is that it takes so long. I've identified the problem. We've got a great candidate here who should be a member of this committee. Oh, let him on. why do we why do we need to have these complex systems for values that we all hold dear? Like, we know that youth deserve a voice in our city. I'm not certain if 3 years or however long it's been is really necessary to verify what in my mind is a simple decision. So I apologize for taking so long, but I do want to say that even just from that brief conversation, you will be helping to improve the lives of people in Minneapolis.
Yeah. That that kind of makes me proud. Um,
You should be proud.
one more thing I want to ask about the Public Health Advisory Committee before we get into some more policy issues for the city is this is something that interested me both when I was interviewing, but also when I was researching your website and your platform, when you mentioned the Public Health Advisory, and that is declaring racism as a public health issue, public health crisis. Just as probably not super easy to just summarize that, but the best you can, given some important information about that.
Certainly. Well, I think I don't want to re-traumatize people, but we all did live through civil unrest in the wake of George Floyd's murder by Derek Chauvin. And subsequent to that, I believe it's now Council President Andrea Jenkins who led the charge in declaring racism as a public health crisis in the city of Minneapolis. And then the question became, well, what does that mean? And what do we do? And how do you solve for that? And as chair, that I will not say that I felt, okay, Jerome, you have to solve this problem. But what I wanted to really do is think, how can I use this body of public health professionals that are kind of following my lead at this moment? How can I make sure that I'm leveraging the talent and expertise and the passion to address the problem, to even get our heads wrapped around the problem? And restructuring a committee is something that a chair is allowed to do. So we now have a dedicated subcommittee on the Public Health Advisory Committee that is devoted to figuring out this issue of racism as a public health crisis, knowing that racism is intersectional and that it touches nearly every point of someone's life. I've heard someone describe it as the water that we swim in. Well, how can we, at the city level, make the water more shallow? So instead of swimming, we're wading. And then maybe it's the next generation of Public Health Advisory Committee members. Maybe it's their job to make it from being shallow to being dry. I was able to create a system that is working in perpetuity to hopefully or remediate or eliminate or reduce the amount of racism that exists in our city. And that makes me very proud. So thank you for asking about that, Jason.
Yeah. So while we're on the topic of that, I just have a couple questions about general policy areas. They're not specific, like specific uh, ideas, but it's just your general thoughts, general ideas, and also Ward 12's general feelings about these issues. So the first one is public safety. It's why I brought it up first, is because of what we were just talking about. Obviously, there's a lot of discourse about, well, there's all this violence, but at the same time, oh, we don't want police for some people. And what is like the situation in Ward 12, and like what is your general thoughts?
So I do want to make it pretty clear that I don't speak for Ward 12. And even when I am elected, I will just be the representative on the council, and there will be differing opinions. But the one thing I can say that I'm pretty sure is true is that crime rates are lower in Ward 12 than in other parts of the city. And in Ward 12, we don't care. We think the crime rate is too high. Nationally, crime is up. New York, Chicago, wherever. We're like, great. Elected official, what are you going to do to make sure that when my child leaves the house and walks down to the gas station, they're going to be safe? And I think that's the heart of the concern. Now, I will say there are things that do not get listed on the website that I have done. I was elected to be president of our homeowners association when I was living in a condo. I was elected to be president over my own objection. Okay. And in February, we had an unlocked lobby. And so people get cold and they would come in and they go to sleep. And so as the president, I would get the 4 or 5 a.m. calls about the fact that there was someone sleeping in the lobby, and they thought that I should call the police. And I was like, I'm not. First of all, I'm a Black gay man living in America. So my relationship with the police is already complicated, but I'm not going to call the police on someone because they're in the cold. But at the same time, I do recognize that in the past, there were people who broke into our condo association and they committed acts of violence. So I don't know necessarily on any given day what I'm dealing with, but at the time, it felt like if I called the police, I didn't know if I was going to be sentencing someone to death, right? That's just where everyone's relationship was with the police a couple of years ago. And so first, I want to stress that maybe going into someone's lobby, I'm going to sleep. Yes, that's a crime, right? That's trespassing. Should it be? I would argue maybe not. Maybe when it's February in Minnesota and you're freezing, and you don't mean any harm, and you should just let your lobby be open so people have a place to sleep. While I can also argue that maybe the city and the county need to be doing more to provide shelter to our unhoused population. So there is like kind of the illusion of crime in that respect, where people in Ward 12 think that people seeking shelter in quasi-public spaces is a crime that makes them feel unsafe, right? And so they want that reduced. And to have that reduced, I would need to see investment at the city and county level. Now, there's a different kind of crime as well, where people came down Hiawatha, they took a right on 46, and they took the next left. They got out in front of a group of kids. They removed a canister of gas, doused the car, and set the car on fire because it was evidence in a crime. Okay, that's a different situation. That's not the kind of thing where I feel like the community needs to come together and like put on our detective hats and sleuth the situation out. So I do believe that our ward wants MPD resourced enough to solve those types of crimes. Similarly, just a couple of days ago, someone brandished a gun on Lake Street at the train station. Then they got on, they went down to 46, they got off, they threatened other people. And so when my husband got home, every intersection in our neighborhood had a police officer with flashing lights because they were trying to find this person who was running around the neighborhood with a gun threatening people. I think that's a good use of the police. I want to make sure that our police are staffed enough so that they can respond to that level of a crisis, but also that when after they've responded to a crisis or a traumatic event, that they are able to take a break. Okay, like we know, like my day job, I send a lot of emails, right? And so it's not a crisis to crisis situation, but we call it putting out fires when in the corporate world. After I put out enough fires, I get up, I leave my computer, and I just kind of dissociate for a little bit because we're staffed enough for me to go and the organization can still run. Currently, our police department is not staffed at a sufficient level for people to disengage from the work of going from one crisis to another crisis to another crisis. And what I really do not want to see is a police officer with a gun experiencing a mental health crisis and causing an actual public safety issue for our communities and further rupturing trust between the city of Minneapolis and the Minneapolis Police Department. So that's, in a broad sense, I would say that's where Ward 12 and I are at on the police in particular. Now, was your question on police in particular or public safety in a broader sense?
Public safety in a broader sense.
Okay, well, in a broader sense, we cannot leave out our fire department and our 911 dispatch. I've had conversations with fire, and it's my understanding that there should be 4 people at a minimum on a truck, and they are currently operating at 3, which you can do, but it's like it's like an emergency, right? Like you can do it, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. The way it's described to me is that 150 pounds is 150 pounds. And if 3 people have to lift up 150 pounds, it's a lot harder than when 4 people are lifting 150 pounds. So I believe that with fire, if we don't see an increase in staffing levels there, then we will eventually get to a point. My big microphone died. So I switched. Where did I mute out for you?
Just after staffing levels with 3 versus 4 and how lifting 150
Yes.
pounds is harder.
What we don't want to see with fire is a situation where we're not able to staff every truck and we have fires that our fire team is not able to respond to. Similarly, our 911 dispatch department is experiencing burnout because it's a tough job and there's not enough people staffed who want to do that job at the level of compensation that's being provided. So, I think most people would agree that MPD is in a state of dysfunction. And we're all trying to work on it. We're all trying to figure it out. But I don't want us to ignore other parts of our public safety apparatus that need attention because we're so focused on MPD.
Yeah, my second kind of area topic is very related to public safety, and that's housing. Especially with the encampments. Near me there is the quarry encampment that got swept a couple weeks ago, and there was a very large police presence there. So a lot of people, regardless of their housing status, are concerned about the housing status of many residents in the city.
Yeah, and I think rightly so. So just to quickly relate that to MPD as well, you said it got smoked. I'm assuming you're referring to how they're bulldozing the encampments when you say it got smoked.
Yeah, I got swept. I think I used the word swept.
Oh, swept. I apologize. I feel like that's dehumanizing. I think that certainly Minneapolis can afford to treat our unhoused neighbors with dignity. One, But then two, I think we have to think about the impact it has on officers when we're asking them to treat human beings in a dehumanizing way over and over and over again. Like, I really don't think we can ask them I don't think they can segment in their minds, oh, it's okay to dehumanize these people here on Thursday and then not dehumanize them somewhere else on Friday. I think that's inconsistent and it breaches trust. So that's one. Two, the price of everything's going up. Every time eggs go up by another dollar, someone else is at further risk of homelessness. The pricing models are not sustainable for a couple of reasons. One, because the cost of renting space in Minneapolis is divorced from the real cost of buying space in Minneapolis, particularly when it comes to what we call naturally occurring affordable housing. So you might buy something at, say, let's pick $200,000 and know that if you hold on to it for 10 years and just rent it out, then it'll be worth $300,000. And you can rent it out at, the highest possible price that you can get. And for whatever reason, in this day and age, the prices are out of control. So I hesitate to say that rent control is the option, because I have not seen a system of rent control that looks like it will work for us. I do love that St. Paul is working on it, and I want them to get it right, because then we could just steal their idea. But I have certainly support keeping speculators, or making it more difficult for speculators to buy up our naturally occurring affordable housing, and converting it into rental properties that people cannot afford.
Yeah, I feel like we see a lot of people, online about they support other people having housing, and yet for some reason that doesn't ring true for everybody, which I feel like basic human rights, you should probably, but so my last question is about, so there is a term I saw on your website multiple times, and that is mighty Minneapolis. What does Ward 12 have that can be, what can Ward 12 lead by example on, and what can the whole city do, and what is your vision of mighty Minneapolis?
I am so glad that you picked up on that phrase, because this is not my first run for office. I ran for state legislature in 63B, and one of the things that I really took away from that campaign, even though I didn't win, was the fact that people were inspired. They felt inspired and empowered to do something to make their community better. I was like, oh, this is amazing. I am going to work especially hard to bring that into this campaign for city council. And honestly, when I think about who we are and what we've been through, that takes grit. That takes strength. And we really need to acknowledge, as part of healing, that we've been through a lot, and then work to resolve the trauma that we're all carrying with us. And I believe that we are strong enough, we are mighty enough to heal and resolve and move forward and turn the page and become a Minneapolis that we can all be deeply, deeply proud of. Now, in Ward 12 specifically, again, after the murder of George Floyd, with NENA, the Nokomis Neighborhood Association, we took a deep look at ourselves to see how we, as a neighborhood association in a formerly redlined community, were complicit in the actions that took place. And so we changed our organizing statement and we created a subcommittee. You can tell I love to create a subcommittee dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion, because people don't just discriminate based on race, but the strategic focus of that committee was on racism and promoting anti-racism in our ward. And so I feel confident saying that Nina, which is the southernmost part of Ward 12, has really embraced a culture of anti-racism. And I think that we are strong enough to stand side by side in solidarity with every other marginalized group in the city of Minneapolis and advocate with them and platform them and enable them to navigate this bureaucracy so that we can all thrive. And that's, in my mind, what being a part of a mighty Minneapolis is all about, specifically at the intersection of Ward 12, mighty Minneapolis, and my website.
Yeah, I think, yeah, when I would think about the goals of an ideal campaign, I would always think not surviving, but thriving for everybody, making sure everybody is safe, healthy, but also happy, quality of life is important more than just surviving. So with that, any other questions you have or any last comments?
I have deep gratitude to you for reaching out to me and like letting me be a part of this space that you're holding and creating. It seems really wonderful. I love that you are continuing the good work that I was first able to witness just a few years ago. And I want to let you know that you've got at least one new subscriber coming out of this conversation, Jason. Thank you.
All right. Well,
wait, I'm sorry to talk over you. Oh my gosh, my campaign manager would have had a heart attack. My website is JeromeTEvans.com. That's JeromeTEvans.com. And you can read all about what we were discussing here today. And maybe by the time you get there, there'll be some new stuff on the website that we haven't talked about, and I'll get an invitation to come back. We'll see. Thank you, Jason.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for joining. And yeah, if you want to watch as a viewer, there will be more candidates from all across the city, hopefully in the coming months.
Awesome. Bye now.
See ya. All right, so as you know, that was Jerome Evans. I almost forgot to ask him about his website and socials, so I'm glad he brought that up at the end. You can follow me on Twitter at, what is it now? I forgot what it is. You can follow me on Twitter at Jason Sellers, and then follow me on Instagram at MPLSJason. Go to my website. It's up there. And subscribe, Jason Sellers Politics, for more candidates. I've been trying to get, or at least at the same time I reached out to Jerome, I reached out to Aaron Chowdhury, who's another Ward 12 candidate, about joining. Elliot Payne, incumbent Ward 1, who was my first guest. I've talked to him about joining again as well. And we will see where things go. So thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for following. If there's any tips or any people you'd like to see, let me know. Bye.